He was just a poor guy racing to his dream job interview, until he stopped to help a stranded woman on the side of the road. He missed the interview, and thought he blew his only shot. But what he didn't know, that woman was the CEO, and she was about to change his life forever. Drenched in sweat and running out of time, Jamal Brooks clutched his worn, faded leather folder. Inside, the last printed copy of his resume. The corners of the paper were slightly bent, and the ink had started to smudge from his nervous, sweaty hands. But to Jamal, that folder held everything: his hopes, his struggles, his last shot at a better life. After nearly 6 months of endless applications, unanswered emails, and rejection letters, he finally got what felt like a miracle: an interview with Carter & Company, one of the most respected marketing firms in the city. Not just any firm. This was the firm. This was the place Jamal had dreamed about while working long nights at the local grocery store. The place he thought about when his stomach growled, and he couldn't afford groceries after paying rent. The place his mother had prayed he'd walk into one day wearing a suit, not an apron. Today was that day. Or so he thought. He weaved through the city streets, trying to move quickly but not look desperate. He had borrowed a blazer 2 sizes too big from a friend and shined up his scuffed shoes with a bit of cooking oil. His heart pounded with a mix of excitement and anxiety as he neared the tall glass building where his future was supposed to begin. Then, it happened. Just as he turned the corner onto Parkview Avenue, a loud pop rang out, followed by a sharp hiss of air. A car had pulled to the side of the road. The front tire was completely shredded. Smoke curled from the rubber. Traffic slowed, drivers glanced, then moved on. Next to the car stood a frail, elderly woman in a light blue coat. She was looking around, clutching her handbag with one hand and a cell phone in the other. But her hand trembled, and her face was pale. She was clearly scared. Jamal slowed down. For a second, he hesitated. He looked down at his watch. 8:42 a.m. His interview was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp. If he kept walking now, he might just make it in time, barely. But he didn't walk. Something in his gut twisted. The woman reminded him of his grandmother, who raised him after his mom passed away. He remembered how she used to sit on the porch, waiting for buses that never came, or how her knees hurt too badly to get up without help. He remembered her favorite saying, "You don't need money to be a good man, baby. Just a good heart." He took one deep breath, jogged across the street, and approached the woman. "Ma'am," he said, crouching a little so he wouldn't scare her, "do you need help?" She looked up in surprise, eyes wide. Oh, thank God. I do. My phone died just as I was calling for help. I don't know how to fix this. Everyone just keeps walking by." Jamal looked at the shredded tire. He wasn't a mechanic, but he'd changed enough flat tires in his neighborhood to know what to do. He gently set down his folder on the sidewalk, rolled up his sleeves, and got to work. The tools were old, the bolts were stuck, and the summer sun blazed overhead. He scraped his knuckles trying to loosen the lug nuts. Grease and dirt smeared across his blazer. He felt sweat run down his back, soaking his collar. The woman stood nearby, holding her handbag tightly. She tried to offer help, but Jamal just smiled and said, "It's all right. I got you." 20 minutes later, he tightened the last bolt and stood up, wiping his hands on a napkin from his pocket. His blazer was ruined. His hands were blackened. And his resume? A breeze had caught it. It now lay face down in a puddle beside the curb. The woman reached into her bag and pulled out some cash. "Please, let me give you something." "You didn't have to do that." Jamal shook his head, breathing heavily. "I didn't do it for money. Just make sure you're safe, okay?" She nodded slowly, almost in disbelief. "Thank you. You have no idea how much this meant." Jamal grabbed his soggy folder, forced a smile, and turned back toward the towering building down the block. The interview was over. The woman smiled faintly, clearly shaken but trying to stay composed. Her neatly done hair clung to her forehead in the rising heat. "Oh, thank you, young man. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't come along." Jamal gave her a warm smile. "Don't worry, ma'am. I got you." He didn't waste another second. With a deep breath, he knelt beside the vehicle and rolled up the sleeves of his oversized blazer. The bolts on the tire were rusted and stubborn, but he attacked them with a kind of determination born from years of struggle. He had no fancy tools, just the standard jack and wrench in the trunk and his own 2 hands. Though Jamal wasn't a mechanic, he'd spent enough time helping out neighbors on his block to know the drill. His mother always said, if you don't know how to help yourself, learn how to help others first. Life will return the favor. He didn't think about the time ticking away. He didn't think about the job interview that could change his life. All he saw was a frightened woman who could have been his aunt or his grandmother, someone left helpless on the side of the road while others passed her by. The sun climbed higher as Jamal worked, sweat soaking through his shirt. His knees scraped against the rough pavement. His hands turned black with grease. The tire finally came loose, and he lugged the spare from the trunk, heaving it into place. It wasn't easy. It wasn't clean. But he got it done. 20 minutes later, he stood up and dusted off his hands, panting, his shirt clinging to his back, his fingertips raw and sore. The new tire sat snug and ready. "There we go," he said with a tired grin. "You're good to go now." The woman looked at him like he had just rescued her from a disaster. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a few crumpled bills, nothing big, just a handful of small notes, but held them out with both hands. "Please," she said, her voice shaking. "Let me give you something. You didn't have to stop, but you did. God bless you." Jamal shook his head. "I didn't do it for money," he said softly. "Just glad I was here. I hope you get where you're going safely." He offered her a respectful nod, grabbed his leather folder, now spotted with grease and creased from the sidewalk, and turned back toward the towering skyline. And then he ran. On the block, through crosswalks, weaving between busy crowds, his heart pounding. His shoes slapped the pavement as he gasped for breath. His tie flapped behind him, and sweat trickled into his eyes. He prayed, "Please let them still see me. Please don't let it be too late." He reached the glass-walled office building, out of breath and disheveled. The company name, Carter & Company. Marketing, gleamed in polished chrome above the entrance. Jamal pushed through the doors and rushed to the front desk. A woman sat behind the counter, perfectly poised, her makeup untouched by the heat outside. She glanced up at him with a cold, practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm here for the 9 a.m. interview," Jamal said between breaths. "Jamal Brooks. Marketing Associate position." She looked at the time on her screen. "You're 27 minutes late," she said, her voice clipped and professional. "The hiring manager has already moved on to the next candidate." Jamal opened his mouth to explain, but stopped himself. What was he going to say? "I changed a tire for a stranger, and that's why I'm not on time for the job of my dreams?" Who would believe that? He looked down at his stained hands, his wrinkled folder, and his ruined blazer. The receptionist added, without emotion, "We only consider candidates who value punctuality. I'm sorry, but we can't move forward." Silence. Jamal felt something heavy drop inside his chest. Not anger. Not even regret. Just disappointment. Not in the receptionist. Not even in the company. In life. He had done what was right. He knew that. But it still felt like he was being punished for it. He straightened up, nodded slowly, and replied in a quiet voice, "I understand." He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just turned around and walked out. As the glass doors closed behind him, the city noise swallowed him up again. No applause. No reward. Just the distant hum of traffic and the sting of a missed opportunity. But what Jamal didn't know was that someone had been watching. And everything was about to change. 2 days had passed since the interview that never was. Jamal lay on his thin mattress in the dim light of his apartment. The walls were bare. A single fan clicked slowly in the corner, blowing warm air. The small space smelled faintly of instant noodles and stress. His fridge held nothing but a carton of eggs and a half-empty bottle of ketchup. His rent was due in 5 days, and he had less than $20 in his account. He stared at the ceiling, unmoving. Thoughts spun through his mind like storm clouds. Was I stupid to stop that day? Did I blow my only shot at changing my life? Maybe people were right. Maybe nice guys really do finish last. Then, buzz. His cracked phone vibrated on the nightstand. He sat up slowly, expecting another job rejection or a message from his landlord. But the caller ID surprised him. Unknown, Carter and Company. His heart skipped. He hesitated for a second, then swiped to answer. "Hello." A confident voice came through the line. "Female. Professional. Good afternoon. Is this Mr. Jamal Brooks?" Yes. "Speaking. This is Ms. Evelyn Carter, CEO of Carter and Company. Marketing. I wanted to personally invite you to a second interview tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Will you be available?" Jamal blinked, unsure if he heard that right. I think there's been a mistake," he said, sitting up straighter. "I never made it to the first interview. I was late." There was a pause. For a moment, he thought the call might drop. "Then," she replied, her voice more gentle this time. "I know," she said. "We're still interested. Can you come in?" Still stunned, Jamal managed, "Yes. Absolutely. I'll be there." "Good. Ask for me at the front desk. We'll be expecting you." The call ended. Jamal sat frozen. Ms. Evelyn Carter. The Evelyn Carter, the face of the company. He had read about her in business magazines, heard of her reputation as one of the toughest but fairest CEOs in the city. Why was she calling him? The next morning, Jamal woke early. He ironed the least wrinkled shirt he owned, used a toothbrush and dish soap to scrub the stains off his shoes, and wore the same borrowed blazer, now cleaned and stitched at the seams. He skipped breakfast. He couldn't afford to be bloated or late. But when he walked into Carter and Company this time, something felt off. In a good way. Last time, the receptionist barely acknowledged him. This time, she smiled brightly and stood as he approached. "Mr. Brooks, Ms. Carter is expecting you. Would you like water or coffee while you wait?" Jamal was startled. Coffee, please." She nodded and returned moments later with a steaming cup. "She'll see you shortly." He didn't have long to wait. A sharply dressed assistant greeted him and led him through glass-paneled hallways filled with quiet energy, clicking keyboards, softly ringing phones, focused conversations. Finally, they stopped in front of a grand wooden door. The assistant knocked once, opened it, and gestured for him to enter. Jamal stepped inside and nearly forgot how to breathe. The office was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the skyline, sunlight bouncing off marble floors and sleek modern furniture. The air smelled faintly of lavender and leather. And sitting behind a polished desk, dressed in a navy blazer and silk blouse, was a woman with perfectly tied-back hair and an air of effortless authority. Jamal's breath caught. It was her. The woman from the roadside. No longer scared or stranded, but poised, powerful, in complete control. She looked up, her eyes locking with his. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. "Mr. Brooks," she said, standing. "I'm Evelyn Carter. Thank you for coming." Jamal's mouth opened slightly in disbelief. "Ms. Carter? That was you. On the side of the road." Her smile widened. "Yes. And you, without knowing who I was, stopped to help." Jamal swallowed hard. "I thought you were just—" She raised an eyebrow, amused. "Just a helpless old woman?" Jamal chuckled nervously. "Well, I didn't mean it like that." "I know," she said warmly. "That's why I wanted to see you. Let's talk." Evelyn Carter sat with a calm grace behind her polished oak desk, her fingers gently clasped together as she studied Jamal with a mix of warmth and calculation, the way only a seasoned CEO could. "You didn't recognize me the other day, did you?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. Jamal's heart thudded in his chest. He was still trying to make sense of the moment. Sitting across from the CEO of Carter and Company, the very company that had rejected him just days ago, and now realizing that the woman he had helped on the street was her? He shook his head slowly. "No, ma'am," he admitted, still breathless. "I didn't. I just saw someone who needed help. That's all." Evelyn's eyes softened, but they never left his. "Exactly," she said. "You didn't know who I was. You didn't ask for anything in return. You just acted. And that speaks volumes." She leaned back in her chair, her voice steady, controlled, but layered with emotion. I was on my way to an important board meeting that morning. My driver had dropped me off a block early so I could take a walk and clear my head. It had been a stressful week. Then, out of nowhere, the tire blew. My phone died moments later, and I was left stranded. Alone. Her voice dipped slightly, eyes narrowing at the memory. You'd be surprised how invisible a woman my age becomes when she's in trouble. People walked by, businessmen in suits, young people with earbuds in, even a couple police officers who barely gave me a second glance. Dozens of people, and no one stopped. She paused, her voice taking on a sharper edge. Until you came along. Late for something important, I'm sure. Dressed up, folder in hand. You had somewhere to be. Jamal sat in silence. He could still feel the grease on his palms, the burn of the pavement under his knees, the way he had sprinted to the building only to be turned away. He swallowed. I figured, the job wasn't more important than someone's safety, he said quietly. I don't know. I just couldn't walk past you like that. Evelyn smiled again. But this time, it wasn't just appreciation, it was respect. And that, she said firmly, told me everything I needed to know about you. She stood, walked over to a cabinet, and pulled out a dark blue folder embossed with the company logo. Her heels clicked softly against the marble as she returned to the desk and placed the folder in front of him. Jamal looked at it, confused. She met his eyes again. Jamal Brooks. Welcome to Carter and Company. His eyebrows shot up. Wait, what? You're not just being hired for the assistant role, she said. We're placing you directly into our leadership development program. It's a selective track for individuals with strong values, initiative, and character. People we believe have the potential to lead teams, not just follow instructions. Jamal's mouth opened, but no words came out at first. His heart raced in his chest. You're serious? Evelyn laughed, not unkindly. Dead serious. I'm the CEO. I don't do interviews often, and I don't hand out second chances easily. But I also don't ignore integrity when I see it in action. She pointed to the folder. Inside is your offer letter. Salary, benefits, mentorship schedule, everything. You'll start Monday, assuming you still want the position. Jamal stared at the folder like it might disappear if he blinked. I don't even know what to say. Don't say anything, Evelyn replied. Just keep being the kind of man who stops to help people when no one's watching. We can teach skills. We can train technique. But character, that comes from within. And you've already proven you have it. Jamal sat there for a long moment, stunned, his eyes starting to sting. He had walked into that office expecting closure, maybe even a polite apology. But instead, he found a door wide open. A door he thought he had missed forever. He slowly reached out and picked up the folder. Thank you, Ms. Carter, he said, his voice steady despite the emotions rising in his throat. I won't let you down. I know you won't, she said. You didn't let me down when you didn't even know who I was. That tells me all I need to know. Months passed, and Jamal Brooks' life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. Gone were the days of rationing meals, of choosing between groceries and rent. He no longer woke up to the hum of a broken ceiling fan in a dim, cluttered apartment. Now, his mornings started with a deep breath of clean air in a sunlit studio just blocks from the office. Hardwood floors. A real desk. A closet with suits he actually owned. But more than the clothes, more than the upgraded address, Jamal had found purpose. Every morning, he arrived early at Carter and Company, coffee in hand, ready to prove that Evelyn Carter's faith in him had not been misplaced. He soaked in every detail, every meeting, every challenge. He asked questions, took notes, stayed late, and it paid off. His ideas began to stand out. His input during marketing pitches turned heads. He had a way of connecting with people, clients, co-workers, even senior executives, because he knew how to listen. He knew what it felt like to be overlooked. And now, with a seat at the table, he made sure no one around him ever felt that way. Soon, people across departments started saying the same thing. There's something about Jamal. He's a real leader. He didn't let the praise go to his head. Every time someone congratulated him, he'd smile and think back to that day on the sidewalk, the torn tire, the stained resume, the moment he thought he had lost it all. He had no idea then that that moment would lead to this one. Then, one afternoon, something unexpected happened. Jamal was working late, again, finishing up a presentation on a new youth-targeted ad campaign. His office had dimmed as the sun began to dip below the skyline, painting the city in gold and amber. Just as he saved his work, his phone buzzed. "Ms. Carter would like to see you in her office." He straightened his blazer, brushed a few crumbs off his desk, and made his way upstairs. The familiar wooden door opened, and Evelyn Carter, still poised, still sharp, greeted him with that same knowing smile she had the day she hired him. "Have a seat, Jamal," she said. He obeyed, sitting tall, wondering what this was about. "We're starting a new initiative," she began. "A mentorship program." She stood and walked over to the window, her gaze sweeping across the city lights. "This company has always been about more than marketing. It's about people. And I've realized something over the years. There are a lot of talented young people out there, just like you once were. Full of potential, but invisible to the world." Jamal listened, his curiosity rising. "I want to find them," she continued. "Bring them here. Teach them. Mentor them. Give them a hand before they need one." She turned, eyes focused now. "And I want you to lead it." Jamal's heart stopped. "Me?" he whispered, the word barely forming on his lips. "Yes, you," Evelyn said. "Who better to guide them than someone who's lived it? You've walked both roads, the one full of rejection and the one paved by opportunity. You earned this, Jamal. And now it's your turn to reach back and pull someone else forward." Tears welled in his eyes before he could stop them. He looked down for a moment, emotions tightening in his chest. Then he looked back up, his voice steady but full of feeling. "I'd be honored." Evelyn smiled and nodded. "I knew you'd say that." As he left her office, something inside him shifted. He wasn't just an employee anymore. He wasn't just the guy who got lucky. He was now a builder, of people, of dreams, of futures. That night, walking home under the streetlights, Jamal passed the same corner where it all began. The sidewalk where he had stopped, knelt, and helped a stranger in need. The same corner where his resume had nearly flown into the gutter, and with it, what he thought was his last shot. He stopped, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Back then, he thought he had lost everything. But that decision, to do the right thing, even when it cost him everything, had given him more than he ever dared to dream. In his office now hung a framed quote Evelyn had chosen just for him. "True leadership begins where selfishness ends." And beneath it, a photo of Jamal, dirt on his hands, sweat on his brow, changing a tire. Because that was the moment he proved who he really was. Sometimes, the biggest opportunities come disguised as moments of inconvenience. Jamal didn't stop to help that woman because he thought it would lead to something. He stopped because it was the right thing to do. And in doing so, he walked into a future greater than the one he thought he missed. In a world that often rewards ambition over compassion, remember this: your character is your greatest resume. So if you ever feel invisible, if you think no one's watching your kindness, your honesty, your sacrifice, keep going. Because someone, somewhere, is. And that moment just might change your life. Folded hands. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful, true-to-life stories that remind us what really matters.